Thank you. For until the top of the hour, UCLA has invited Jane Fonda to one of the commencement addresses for film graduates. But veterans are outraged because in 1972, the actress met with enemy soldiers in Vietnam. Meanwhile, students at the school are silent on the subject.
Here with his thoughts, UCLA professor and author of Cheating, Tim Groseclose. Tim, thanks a lot for joining us this morning. So what's the reaction to Jane Fonda? This really seems, you know, a 40-year-old sort of left-wing activist, not relevant, I think, even in film at this point. What would be the point of inviting Jane Fonda to speak at the film school commencement?
You know, I did a quick survey of some of my students, and the overall response was no opinion. In fact, one of them asked me, one of the survey respondents, wasn't she in Charlie's Angels? And as you said, yeah, this is almost 50 years, it happened almost 50 years ago, and 20-year-olds just don't know who she is.
Yeah. Well, here's a quote from the university. They say, "We are truly honored to have Jane Fonda speak at this year's commencement ceremony. Jane is a visionary and a remarkable artist who has spent her life telling deeply powerful stories." That's from Terry Schwartz, the dean of UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television. So this is the film school. It's not for every single student at UCLA. And you actually have a theory of how she ended up being the commencement speaker in the first place.
You know, yeah, I've been watching. UCLA is pretty left-wing, pretty progressive, but the chancellor himself has been very pro-soldier, pro-veteran. Every year we have a moving ceremony for Veterans Day. The chancellor shows up and gives a speech. I have a hunch, and actually I have a source who's somewhat verified this, that it was the dean's idea of the theater, film, and television school, not the chancellor. So, for instance, there's a Facebook page of something like the veterans to boycott Hanoi Jane. They're telling people to call up the chancellor. I think it's the dean who's the problem here, though.
So, Tim, obviously this country is very, as it should be, exquisitely sensitive to racial bias, discriminating against people based on their race. And yet you discovered during your time at UCLA that the school, which is a state school, of course, is systematically discriminating against Asian applicants based on their race, and sort of in large numbers. Tell us about that.
That's right. Well, in California, we have Prop 209, which is an explicit law. It's in our Constitution. It says you cannot use race in admissions. That was passed in 1996. From 2005 to 2008, I was a member of the Faculty Oversight Committee for Admissions. And in 2007, I think it was, I saw some irregularities. And I asked for some data. UCLA refused to give me that data, even though I rightfully should have. As a member of that Oversight Committee, I resigned in protest. UCLA picked the equivalent of a blue ribbon commission to study what I made my claims, and lo and behold, 4 years later, this blue ribbon commission, it was headed by a sociology professor, did find that there was some racial discrimination. Specifically, African Americans are given racial preferences, and meanwhile, Asian Americans are actually discriminated against. Pretty big numbers. Something like 300 or so Asians are denied admission each year because of the discrimination. Something like 120 African Americans are admitted each year who wouldn't be without the racial preferences.
Yeah, so you say that the student body isn't the problem, really, it's the faculty in the first place with all this. But we want to show our viewers a comparison of the way that it was to the way that it is now. The numbers break down like this: 34% more African Americans, 5% fewer Southeast Asians, and 9% fewer North Asians. What's the benefit of all this?
Well, the faculty, I think most of the faculty would say something like diversity is just so important that we need to break the law to do this. This is something like civil disobedience. Now, I'd argue that they're doing the civil disobedience in the dark and lying about it. And so, you know, even Martin Luther King would say you should not do that.
Well, of course.
By the way, those numbers you just showed.
If the numbers were reversed, Eric Holder would be on the scene right now with an investigation and federal marshals. Thanks, Tim, for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Tucker.